Well, good morning. It's Saturday, June 12th, and we are gathered for a morning devotion, again using Hebrews for Everyone by N.T. Wright. And we are in chapter 11, verses 7 through 12. It was by faith that Noah, who had been warned by God about things that were not yet seen, took the warning seriously and built an ark to save his household. He thus put the rest of the world into wrong and became heir to the righteous standing with accords with faith. It was by faith that Abraham, who God called, obeyed and went to a place where he would receive an inheritance. Off he went, not knowing where he was going. It was by faith that he stayed in the promised land as a stranger, living in the tents with Isaac and Jacob, who were joint heirs in the same promise. He was looking ahead, you see, to the city which has been the foundation, the city which God is the designer and the builder. It was by faith that Sarah herself, who was barren, received power to conceive a child even when long past the right age, since she considered that God, who had promised, was trustworthy. Thus it came about that from one man, and him more or less dead, there was born a family as many as the stars in the heaven in number, and uncountable the sands on the seashore. The starry heaven above us was one of the two central facts upon which the great philosopher Immanuel Kant based his view of God. From the earliest recorded time, humans have gazed up at the night sky and pondered the mysteries of the universe. Of course, people have been drawn strikingly different conclusions from what they have seen. Many older thinkers imagined that the night sky was a dome filled with holes through which light could peep. It took a radical shift to see them as individuals and widely different sources of light in their own right. Only this last week, a newspaper article declared that the Milky Way is much larger than we had previously thought. Some astronomers look at the sky and think of God, of infinity, of mysteries beyond our imagining. Others see primitive forces driving energy in black holes. And so we are continuing our passage here about, and we call it the Hall of Fame of people in the Bible. And so we begin with Noah. It was by faith that Noah listened to God. I mean, think of the circumstances that Noah had to face. God says, hey, Noah, I want you to build this ark, and it's going to be humongous. I want you and your family to build it because it's going to rain someday, and you need to be ready. Well, we know that someday came, but the people around him probably looked at him like he was crazy. And they gathered all these animals and family and friends, I suppose. And it was true what had happened because Noah had lived by faith. Noah had listened to God, knowing that what he was doing was absolutely crazy. But he had enough faith in God. He had that total trust in God to know what God was saying was true. And then he goes on to Abraham. And Abraham was called by God to leave, to go to a land I'm going to promise you. Just go. And so he packed up all his belongings. He packed up his family. He packed up his farm and his servants and everything. And he went. And he waited in this land. And he knew God had promised him. He promised him a family as vast as the stars in the sky and as number of grains of sand in the sea. God had promised him, and he waited. And he waited by faith. And Sarah was barren and bore a child, and it was only because out of faith. See, these are great stories of faith that we look back on. And we say, look at how great the faith of the people was back then. Look at what they did by faith. They did some radical and crazy things, knowing that one day God's promise would come true, and they did. Noah had the flood. Abraham's genealogy led to, such a great number of ancestors, number of grains of sand in the sea, stars in the sky. But they had that faith, and they waited patiently on God to act. And so my question becomes to you in this day is, what great acts of faith are you waiting for God to do? What is God seeking from you and asking of you to do? Is there something that just seems radically crazy that God is asking you to do, and do you have enough faith in God to follow through? And I just want you to ponder that as we recall those stories of Noah and Abraham and Sarah, who did and believed in God, who did crazy, unimaginable things because they had such faith in God. Ponder on those questions this day.